Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now I want to give a special shout out before I start this video to the members at the W212 Owners Club. They gave me a lot of support on my last couple of videos and I really do appreciate it. I'm there all the time, every day. It's a great place to be if you love these cars and kind of what they can provide. But I want to kind of make a video today about sort of the top things that you should know when you get into a W212 and some things that you should be looking for. Now, if you are familiar with my previous videos, I did mention that I did get into or wanted to get into a W211 E550 before this. Now, obviously that didn't work out. It wasn't a good financial decision. I was like 17 at the time, probably wasn't a good decision. So I instead impulse bought this about 5 years later, which is obviously a much better decision. So I want to kind of go over the top 10 things that maybe I should have known more of when I got into this vehicle. And whether you are looking at a prospective car to buy, you bought a car and are now kind of going over it with your mechanic or yourself at DIY, because you can DIY a lot of stuff here, what to look for. Or if like me, you said, I just bought a twin turbo aging German sedan. What is wrong with me? This video is for you as well. So without further ado, kind of want to jump on to number one, which starting on the exterior is the timing chain and tensioners in a lot of these V6 and V8 cars. Now, in the M276 and M272, I believe still had this problem. The M278, which is what I have here, is essentially a 6-cylinder version of that V6 motor, or an 8-cylinder version of that 6-cylinder motor. And of course, the M157, which is the 5.5-liter version of this motor that AMG put their hands on, that is now found in the E63s, or was found in the E63s of this era. So they all had that same issue where some of the camshaft adjusters, which actually helps adjust the camshaft profile. So much like your variable valve timing or VTEC on a very rudimentary level, there are two camshaft profiles and it kicks in very aggressively on those Hondas. Obviously it's a lot smoother in these cars, you don't really notice it, but with the turbos and the power delivery and the tune, that is going to have to change and have to adjust those profiles, those intake and exhaust lobes as it needs. So those timing and those changers, those adjusters rather, tend to go bad on these vehicles. Unfortunately, you really should go OEM with these parts here, and they are unfortunately around $900 a piece at the time of recording this, and you do need 4 of them. There is one for each camshaft, which there's 2 intake and 2 exhaust for each bank of the engine. So not a cheap fix. If you have any sort of warranty on the car, which I do, those will be covered. And hopefully it's not too big of a deal. It is a DIY job if you have done some basic mechanic work in the past, but it does require removing some tubing up front, the intakes, which isn't a big deal, but getting off, you actually have to take off the front cover of that timing housing as well. And it does involve timing as well with the timing chain. So if you don't want to have to mess with that, which I didn't, or I don't rather, I haven't had that problem yet, definitely something to leave to the professionals there. And number 2 is going to be the timing chain itself. Now the camshaft's position sensors actually help rotate, or is part of that timing assembly, obviously, with the camshafts. And that chain, if you're on a 2012 or earlier in the 6-cylinder, or sometimes if you can get a 2012 twin turbo V8, which you still could find those, you will find that timing chain is actually a single chain width. Now the updated chain has 2 chain widths, so it's basically the easiest way to put it. So it's a little bit of a thicker chain, it's much more robust, and it's gonna last a lot longer and stand up to higher temperatures, higher wear, which is just better, because if that snaps, you're gonna have a bad time. Pistons are gonna be high-fiving valves. You don't want that. So definitely make sure, if you are in there for whatever reason, for any way, shape, or form, if you're in that timing case, definitely look at the price of upgrading that timing chain to the newer one. The parts itself are not that expensive, but of course, like anything, it's the labor. So if you can DIY it and you have a space to do it, I would definitely recommend it. And going hand in hand with that timing chain, again, all in that same area, seems to be the most vital parts of the engine, are the most problematic, but it's something that you should know about, is the timing chain tensioners. Now, there is a bulletin on these vehicles that a lot of, mainly the V8s have dealt with, but certainly the V6s as well, is a check valve. And I did speak about that in my previous video, which I did get that done, cost around about $2,800 just for this job alone, just with all the labor, and they did a whole bunch of other stuff in there as well. But what that basically does is, without that check valve in there, which essentially stops oil from draining from that top of that engine, so when you go to start it the next day, those top end components are still lubricated and not creating extra wear. Without that check valve, which a lot of vehicles didn't have, my 2013 did not have, if that wasn't done over time, it'll cause wear and excess stretch on the timing chain and the timing chain tensioners, which is something that will need to be replaced. Again, these are in the same exact area as that camshaft positioners, and those can be DIY'd a lot easier. You're not dealing with timing directly. You're not removing anything off of the chain. You're really just removing one piece and putting up a new tensioner to kind of reestablish the proper tensile strength within that chain, within the timing gearing of everything. So definitely very important. You might hear a rattle on startup on the timing chain with the timing chain issue if it's a little bit loose with the tensioners, or a bunch of clunking occasionally on startup if you have a bad adjuster. A couple of things could be causing that, but those are top 3 things in the engine at least that I would definitely keep a lookout for. Now, regardless of what W212 you have, if you did pick up an E-Class in this generation, you're gonna wanna take a look at the subframe. Unfortunately, these subframes do have a very common problem of rusting out, and it's pretty much a guarantee. If you live down south with no snow whatsoever, which this was a daily driver in New England, God help me, you may be a little better off, and you may have some more time before you need a replacement, but eventually you are going to need a new subframe. I got mine inspected a couple weeks ago by an indie specialist that I go to, which we will be doing a video with them soon. I'm just trying to schedule things up with them. They're a very busy shop, so we can probably do a video on them soon. Again, subscribe if you want to see that. But they said that I have a little bit of time, but definitely start looking into getting it changed. And unfortunately, it's not cheap. You can get them imported for sometimes cheaper than buying a domestic one. These also do share a subframe with the W218, which is the CLS, the W204, which is the C-Class of this era, and of course the W212. And there may be 1 or 2 more that I'm not familiar with that may fit as well. So definitely do your own research. So if you can source a clean one from California or down south that's relatively new, sandblast it, coat it, make sure it's rust protected, and then install it. There were a couple people in the group, so I'll try to see if I can put their posts up. Now I'll blank out their names, but they were able to do a DIY fix on this, and it took them about a weekend, but they've been working on cars for 20, 30 years, I believe. So it definitely was a little bit more of an experienced mechanic type of job, even if you haven't done that specific thing as well. It really is just a couple of bolts, a bunch of bolts, and you don't have to drop any of the driveline components or anything like that. But not something that I'm willing to do myself, especially just with the lack of experience I have in that world. So that is something that I am looking to get done as of soon. It's something that you should definitely take a look at and see if, especially if you're buying a 2010, 11, 12, even a 13, I would inquire to see if that has been done, and maybe even call up a dealer to see if that has been done. Now, Mercedes does have a bulletin out for their European and German clients, so if they do have rust, they can get it replaced for free at Mercedes. It might take a long time to source the part, but they'll get it done for free. Unfortunately, that does not transfer over to our USA and I believe Canada, basically all of North America. Is not going to be privy to that, unfortunately. So something to definitely look out for. Not a deal breaker, but just something to keep your eye on and some maintenance that you're gonna have to save up for in the future. And also in this corner right here, everyone's favorite, they love to hate it and they love to love it, Airmatic. Now, if you watch my previous videos, again, you know that this car does not have Airmatic, and it was optioned out from the factory on purpose so you don't have to go through those headaches. Airmatic typically fails at around 100,000 miles, almost on the dot, regardless of where you live, hard roads or not. So not something that is really fun to keep taking care of, especially because they do tend to fail and leak and not be as reliable and as simple as just a standard coil spring. Now, the coil spring setup I have here is just standard OEM replacement parts. It's fresh in the back at least. And it rides fine. It rides a lot better than most cars. It's definitely planted to the ground. It feels fantastic, but not quite as nice as an Airmatic ride in an S-Class or even the E63s or any other E-Class, even as low as E350 that may have the Airmatic. So not a deal breaker and not something that you should try to avoid, but just be aware if not, those air shocks have been replaced at any point in its lifetime. Thankfully, on the E-Class, you only have 2 in the rear that you have to worry about. Unfortunately, that does go for as much as $1,000 or more per corner if you go to an indie shop, or even more if you go to a dealer, of course. And replacing them or basically changing them to a coil spring typically costs about that much as well. So a lot of people end up just kind of converting to coil springs. Or I shouldn't say a lot, but some people do end up converting to coil springs at least partway through its life. Now, one of the most straightforward and simple ones is got to be just checking your history and checking your service records. You can get a Carfax if you're buying it from a dealer. If not, if you have a hookup with someone at a dealer, maybe you can get a Carfax through them, or at the very least, pay for it. I mean, $40 to know the history of your car and at least be able to follow the history even further. Now, Carfax is a great system. It's a great program. I mean, you have a lot of great information there, but it's certainly not everything. So what you want to do is look at the Carfax and actually see the dealer that it was serviced at consistently. family, and hopefully it's a Mercedes dealer, hopefully it's in your area, and you can either go down there in person or call them up, shoot them an email, and get those service records copied over and emailed to you. It may take a couple of days because it's certainly not high priority for them, but they will be able to get you those records if it is at that dealership. And then you can see everything that they've done, all the ROs, everything, not just the cursory information that they submit to the Carfax bureau so that they can pull, basic information. You might say, see vehicle serviced on the Carfax, but at a Mercedes dealership, they might say, oh yeah, we did the transmission, the front differential, the rear differential, needed this or this, and we did that with the service as well. It might have been a $3,000 bill, but it would never be reflected in the Carfax necessarily. So just something to note there. And in that same vein of the transmission and services that you should be doing, definitely take a look to see if your car has a transmission speed sensor. These are known to fail in some of the E550s of the earlier years, and I assume, since it is a similar, basically the same transmission in the 6 cylinders, you would find that there as well. And essentially what that does is it ends up failing. It's a sensor within the transmission, from my understanding. It ends up failing, and the only way to change it is to take the transmission out and actually replace the sensor. I believe, like I said, it's inside, so it's a lot of labor time. And it does cause third, fourth, or second gear to kind of stick, and then it bangs into it. So it really kind of kills your driving experience, and it is kind of an expensive fix in terms of labor time, just because it's kind of complicated to get to. So if that is something that might be on your vehicle, definitely look it up, look up your VIN, check the year, do some research on your own, but definitely something to be aware of as well. Now, jumping into the inside of the vehicle, a lot of the things that are wrong with the inside are really cosmetic and are things that you could probably get past, like the faded wood. It is actually a class action lawsuit, so if you would like your $7.14, please sign up for that class action lawsuit, and maybe you can get a slice of that pie. However, the wood in here does tend to fade, and there's a saying that I've heard, I forgot who said it, but only the Germans can make real wood look fake, and Americans can kind of make fake wood look real. It's pretty convincing, which is kind of funny and kind of true. However, this wood was a lot more richer in original pictures. I'll see if I can find some, I'll put some up on screen. And it's definitely has faded since its original conception. You can actually buy replacement wood from Mercedes for probably around $600 to $700, depending on where you are, if it is available. Or you could wrap it, which is what a lot of people are doing anyways. For me, I do like the wood because I have the wood steering wheel. I'll keep it for now. It might get replaced in the future, but I'm not too hot on that. The second is the buttons, and that is a common thing on a lot of these older German cars, is that the buttons start peeling off out of nowhere, whether from your finger oils or just use. And I definitely have that over on the left side, on the driver's side controls over here. Thankfully, nothing crazy on the center console here, and a little bit of the black plastic is kind of starting to chip off on the steering wheel. So nothing crazy. You can get some pretty affordable stickers or caps or covers for the switches that actually kind of make it look a little bit more premium, match some of the silver plastic accents in here. So not a huge deal, something to consider and something to watch out for, but don't be deterred by it by any means. And the last one that I can really think of is probably the center control dial down here. Now, this control dial controls your stock system up here for your NTG system or whatever you have. I think it's Audio 20, I believe it's called. I have an NTG 4.5, which is just a generation of the infotainment system. And this controls that, this little dial here. Now, it is connected by a plastic piece that actually controls it down into the module or into the circuitry, and that occasionally does wear down and then starts not being able to actually turn the switch it needs to turn. It's a fairly easy or cheap fix, I should say. You buy a metal piece on eBay or wherever you can. They're plentiful all over the internet. And you replace that plastic pole where that button actually attaches onto, and then that's pretty much a permanent fix. You do have to take apart some of the center console, which in YouTube videos doesn't seem too crazy, but it's definitely something that you gotta undertake and be okay with it and know what you're getting into. So it's a well-known fact that Germany makes some of the best high-performance sedans that you can buy. Mercedes, I believe, being at the top, and I don't think I'm alone with thinking that. As well and as thoughtful as they are engineered, and at times a little over-engineered for sure, they are completely worth it to keep maintained. And if you do maintain it to their schedule, you will have a car that will last you a very, very long time. Now, you are not getting Honda levels of maintenance and affordability no matter what year of Mercedes you're getting, but you're also not getting a Honda level experience as well. So it comes to the territory, you do have to pay to play, but it is a fantastic vehicle, and I don't think I could be driving anything else now. So if you are looking to pick up a W212 in this era, like a 09 all the way up to 2016, from facelift to pre-facelift, definitely don't be afraid. Just be aware of what you're getting into. And it may have only costed me $15,000, but it costed me almost another 10 grand plus to get it back up to spick and span shape as it is now. And there's still more to probably be done in the coming miles, but it's something that I'm almost excited for because I love being able to maintain this car and being able to feel how it kind of comes back to life from its, sludgy, kind of loose driving with crappy brakes beforehand to a nice, smooth, contained ride with plenty of power with the Stage 1 tune, and I could not be happier. So whether it's a 350, a 220, a 250, a 500, a 550, don't be afraid, enjoy the car. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.